What's going on, guys? My name is Austin. This is the Bodies in Business podcast. And today we're going to talk about one of the easiest things you can do every single day to better your health, and that is get sunlight. Okay. And I want to tell you up front, all you really need to do in the morning is to get 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight outside and just be out there for 5 to 10 minutes to help set your circadian rhythm. Okay, that is the main thing that the sun really does for our brain and body, is it helps us run on a 24-hour clock when we get outside and set our circadian rhythm for about 5 to 10 minutes. And when you do that, it actually helps you realize, do I get outside for 5 to 10 minutes in the morning? Probably not, because you actively have to try to get outside these days because everything we do is pretty much inside unless you work outside. And if you work outside, more power to you. You probably get quite enough sunlight to set your circadian rhythm. Anyways, let's jump in real quick. I gave you the bottom line up front is at least 5 to 10 minutes after you wake up, get outside, preferably within the first hour of waking, and get 5 to 10 minutes outside. Now, you don't want to stare at the sun, okay? You don't have to go outside and stare at the sun. That's how you're going to blind yourself, so don't do that. And you don't want to wear sunglasses. You don't want to wear blue blockers. You want to just be outside in the sun and get that nice sunshine on your brain on your body, and just maybe even go for a 5 to 10 minute walk. And that's what I love doing. I go for like a 15 to 20 minute walk, a 30-minute walk sometimes if I get out there soon enough. But I know everybody's got to get to work. So if you can get outside for 5 to 10 minutes first thing in the morning, I know it can be super hectic and people are like, dude, I don't have time to get outside for 5 to 10 minutes when I'm getting my kids ready or I'm getting ready and I have a million things going on. But if you can just make an effort, that's all I'm asking. Make an effort. I know this is not going to happen tomorrow. Maybe it will if you want to jump on that train. But there's so many reasons why you need to get your sunlight for the day, and I'm going to get into it. Because at the end of this conversation, I'm just going to go through like this little short story that I came up with ChatGPT, as if the sun went out and the sun just left us. And, I maybe was inspired by Project Hail Mary because that movie's awesome. If you haven't gone to see it yet, you should. It's incredible. Ryan Gosling does an incredible job. He's like the only character in the movie pretty much, and he carries the movie. Dude, he's top 5. He's top 5 actor. I'm saying it and putting it out there. But let's just jump in to when is the best time. And we already kind of talked about this, but morning, right after you wake up, within that first hour is the best time to set your circadian rhythm. Now, there's different times when you want to get vitamin D or do something like that. But once you get outside in the morning and you're outside for 5 or 10 minutes, the sunlight actually tells your brain and body that, hey, you need to start making melatonin about 12 to 14 hours from this point. Okay, because we want you to go to bed around 12 to 14 hours after this point, because we want you to get some sleep so that we can do all this great stuff another day. All right. So morning time, one of the best times to view sunlight outside. Now, if you're inside and you still see sunlight, you get some of the benefits, but the windows and everything else, the shades, all that stuff kind of blocks what's called lux, the lux of light, the intensity of light. So you need to get outside. Just get outside, have your cup of coffee outside or something. Go for a little walk. Maybe if you get to work in, enough time and you want to take a break, get outside. All right. It doesn't have to be in that first hour, but from what I've read and researched, it's helpful to be in that first hour, but you can obviously get outside in the morning time. Now, what I've heard from a circadian rhythm standpoint is there's this dead period after 11 a.m. that it's not going to be super, super helpful to get outside and set your circadian rhythm with that morning sunlight, but it's still better than nothing. And we'll get into afternoon and evening sunlight as well. So there's that. There's when you want to get outside is, first thing in the morning. And then one of the big things that people don't realize is sunlight exposure actually helps with cortisol levels. When we wake up in the morning, there's this thing called the cortisol awakening response that happens. Our cortisol levels actually increase to some of their highest levels in the day because our body's like, hey man, time to get up, time to go hunt your food, time to go get work done, time to get your kids ready to, conquer the day. And your cortisol levels get really high because your body's like, hey man, it's time to get up. Sunlight actually helps increase those cortisol levels because you want the increase in cortisol to gradually go down throughout the day. So that the high cortisol level at the top or in the morning is actually super helpful because then it can decline over time. People think of cortisol and they think, oh no, that's stress, that's bad. Now, chronic stress is not great for you, but elevated cortisol levels in the morning, not a bad thing, so that it can taper down throughout the day. And then by the time you get at night, cortisol levels are pretty low. So that's the cortisol awakening response, and sunlight actually helps with that. The big spike comes about 30 to 45 minutes after waking, and if you're in sunlight, it actually increases that cortisol level and gets you more ready. Okay, now we're going to talk about a little melatonin versus melanopsin. All right. Everybody knows what melatonin is, or most people know what melatonin is. Melatonin is the sleepy hormone. Melatonin makes us feel tired. I talked about it earlier, where melatonin is whenever you see sunlight, your body actually tells your internal clock, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. I like saying that word to sound smart, but it tells your suprachiasmatic nucleus, hey, I need you to start producing melatonin about 12 to 14 hours from now. Well, melanopsin is actually the opposite of melatonin. Melanopsin prevents the production of melatonin. So whenever your brain and your eyes sees sunlight, sees a lot of blue light, melanopsin cells actually prevent the production of melatonin or bring it down like almost to 0%. There's always a percentage there, but it brings it down very, very low. Whenever at nighttime, the same thing happens. If you are looking at blue light, if you are looking at the TV, if you're looking at your phone and it's really, really bright, your brain is actually being signaled, hey, don't produce melatonin. And so that's why it's important at nighttime that we don't see a lot of blue light. We don't see a lot of sunlight. But in the morning and in the afternoon, that sunlight is very helpful because it's going to keep us awake. That melanopsin in our body is going to prevent the melatonin from being produced or lower the level of production. And then your body's going to be like, okay, I can stay awake. It's not going to always happen. Obviously, if you pulled an all-nighter, that's a different story. But that's how your body works. And it's pretty cool. So melatonin, melanopsin, you need to know the difference, and you need to know why melatonin is helpful at night, and you don't want it to be produced in the morning time so that when you see sunlight, it actually stops producing as much melatonin and wakes you up. Now, vitamin D. Vitamin D is so important. There's so many critical functions in our body, and there's about roughly 43% of adults in America are deficient in vitamin D. And people want to know, okay, so how do I get enough vitamin D? Well, the sun can actually provide enough vitamin D for you if you're out in the sun for about 15 to 30 minutes, 2 to 4 times a week. In shorts and a t-shirt. Now I know, in the wintertime, that's very tough to do. So some people supplement with a vitamin D pill, but that's something you need to know is vitamin D is very, very important, and we can get it from the sun. So you just need to know that you can get vitamin D from the sun, and 15 to 30 minutes of vitamin D exposure to the sun with shorts and a t-shirt can actually provide that amount of vitamin D for your body. And it's super important. And probably one of the reasons why we are so deficient is because we're inside 90% of the time. So we don't get outside very often. All right. And honestly, I want to jump right into my short story here and tell you about the sun and if it were to go out, okay? If it were to disappear, if it was just kaboof, done, okay? I'm going to read this. I'm actually excited about this. All right, here we go. If the sun just disappeared, we'd have about 8 minutes to enjoy life before everything goes completely dark, like the universe just flipped the breaker and forgot about us. After that, it's permanent night. The moon vanishes, and within a few days, temperatures start dropping below freezing. Give it a week or two, and we're suddenly living inside a giant walk-in freezer with global temps plummeting toward negative 100 Fahrenheit over the next few months. Plants tap out pretty early, within days to weeks, which means food disappears. And now we're all on the most aggressive, unplanned fasting protocol in human history. The oceans start freezing on the Earth's surface. Within weeks and over years, they freeze deeper and deeper, just locking in the situation. Meanwhile, unless you've got a bunker powered by nuclear and geothermal energy, survival becomes a pretty short-term experiment. And right when things couldn't get worse, Earth also stops orbiting and just drifts off into space immediately after the sun disappears. So now we're a frozen rock on a road trip with no destination. The wild part is the sun isn't just giving you a tan, it's running your sleep, your mood, your energy, your food supply, everything. So yeah, next time you step outside in the morning, just know you're about 8 minutes away from total chaos, and the giant ball of fire is the only thing keeping you from being a popsicle floating through space. That's it. Well, hopefully that's helpful, guys. We need to appreciate the sun more than we already do. I take it for granted every day. I'm just like, maybe I'll just go for a walk, get my sunlight. No, I think for the rest of this week, I'm just going to be like, man, I appreciate the sun a little more today, knowing that if it went away, we'd be, left. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully that's helpful. If you need any help, reach out. If you want something to appreciate the sun and it's all of its greatness. And that's all I got. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, get after it.